So now that we looked at all these smaller kind of accent plants, let's start looking at some of the hanging plants. We can use some of these types of plants here for, again, for pots and kind of accents, or sometimes you'll have a balcony with a nice, you know, modernistic or Spanish style pot up on top of it. And these plants will grow and hang off the side of it. And it gives it you really natural feel if you have a big concrete patio up on a balcony or something like that. But I use them a lot for just little accent pots. I usually have my customers pick up their pots and then I can design something in them. This is my favorite kind of draping plant here. It's a succulent. It's a Senecio, fishhooks Senecio. It's extremely useful, and it's got a little bit of a blue hue to it, which is really nice. It's kind of one of the better hanging succulents. I have one of these in my house. It's probably about 4 feet long. It took only like 6 months to get that long. You just trim it here and there and it'll stay fresh. You know, these are all great. String of pearls here. They don't grow as well, as you can see right off the bat, but if you can get them growing, they'll look pretty cool, you know. Come through here, more of those, and then here's kind of my my secondary one here. We have this guy, but we have this one. This is another Senecio. I forgot its precise name, but we use these sometimes too. I really just like the blue one mostly. Now we can move on to the next section here. Now we got the bigger 5-gallon plants. So these plants are going to be used a lot more often in your big open patio or in your big open front yard, backyard, on the edges of the yards. Wherever you're going with it, this size is going to do pretty well. You know, you don't want to put something like this in a little pot, of course, because you don't want the roots to get too raveled up in the pot and then restrict the growth of the plant, right? So this size you're going to want to put in the ground most of the time, or in a huge pot, you know. So here we have this is a variegated aeonium here. Variegated means that it has 2 colors, and usually that means that it's green and yellow. So that's a good one. They actually, each of these grow on their own individual stalks, actually. So it's kind of like a little bouquet that you can grab. If you have these on your property already and they're in a big bushel and you're thinking, this is crazy, it's too big, you can actually just grab a piece of it and shove it in the ground somewhere else and it'll probably grow. That's a big, huge, awesome thing about succulents, is you can just grab them and place them most of the time, you know. Very useful. So if you got succulents all over your property, but you don't have any in your front yard, you can just grab some and put them in your front yard if you really wanted to. This is another aeonium. This is the aeonium Droughtscape, it's called. That's just its Latin name there. Pretty much the same kind of plant as the other aeonium there. But you get the black color with it. You don't get that color with very many plants at all. So that's a useful one for some accents. These guys are a little bit more fragile than some of the other succulents I'm going to be showing you. I really like using agaves and stuff like this that are basically cactus, honestly, but they look like succulents, you know. So we have a few more here. So this is just your normal aeonium. So you got your variegated, your Droughtscape, and your just aeonium. And these guys, you'll see these guys growing in big giant clusters, big huge mounds. And again, you can transplant it if you want to, but I've seen people trim these in huge spheres, actually, like big half spheres in the front yard or something like that, and it's pretty cool stuff. So these are the healthiest growing out of all the aeoniums, is the standard aeonium that hasn't been spliced or anything. Now moving on, we got some jades, a little bit more old school looking. I don't use the jades entirely too often, honestly, but in certain cases they can be useful. And then we have here, this is a felt plant, and it's literally, you know, it's called a felt plant because I felt it and it feels nice. But it literally actually feels like felt, which is pretty cool. It's a very, very interesting, very unique plant. Another plant I honestly don't use entirely too often, but it has its moments, and it has some shade resistance as well, which is nice. And then here we have some agaves. You'll see these all over Los Angeles. This is the foxtail agave, or agave attenuata. Very useful. This one here I'm touching is actually a variegated. If you get close here, it has the yellow running along the edges, right? So that's actually a variegated. It's a slight variegated, right? And then that one over there is not, you know, it's full green. So they have some variegated and some non-variegated here. This is one reason I like you know, Lincoln Nursery. It's actually They have a lot of variety, and it's not a huge nursery, but they have a lot of variety, which is nice. This is kind of this is an agave attenuata nova, so it's just a blue foxtail agave, essentially. It's got a little bit more of the blue color. I like them. They're a little pokier though, so watch out for the kids and the dogs. And coming through here, you know, we got some more agaves. This is a great one here. This is an agave angustifolia, and it's variegated. So that's actually a very interesting, uncommon plant right there. Very beautiful, kind of big. You know, you want to trim it a little bit when you plant it. And the price tag on that's going to be a little high. Not as high as these cactus though. You hit one of those cactus back there, these big huge cactus, you're going to spend a lot of money. I don't use cactus entirely too often unless somebody really wants that Texas cactus type vibe, you know. And if they have the budget for it. These are actually in big 15, this might be even bigger. This is about a 15-gallon bucket. And so it's a big hefty plant. The roots are growing pretty deep in there. It's a big plant. To try to do it yourself, that's going to be real rough. You're going to get some pokes in you. Yeah, you're spending on average for something of this size at least $200 per plant, whereas the same size for one of the foxtail agave might run 60 bucks or a little bit more, maybe 60 to 100 for the very large ones. And then coming through here, this is just a weird euphorbia here. There's some fire sticks euphorbia I'm going to show you in a little bit that have a lot of orange in them. Very nice. This is honestly an almost unpleasant one in my opinion. A euphorbia is a plant that has this white milk type sap on the inside that if a dog chews on it or something, and they swallow it or they eat a bunch of it, they can actually get pretty sick. And it's a skin irritant, so if you get some on your skin, you'll get a little itchy, but if you get it in your eye, you'll be washing your eye out for about 3 hours. So you got to watch out for the euphorbias. Euphorbias originally came from Africa actually, and they had these huge trees. When it rained, it would literally rain acid in that area. Pretty interesting stuff. So this is obviously not to that extent. Those were trees. These are little mini versions basically, but watch out for that. The fire sticks I'm going to show you, they're extremely useful as far as aesthetics is concerned though. So let's take a look at that in a minute. These are weird. These are those huge blue agave you see everywhere. These are agave Americana. And you'll see these have huge stalks coming out of the middle of them with some flowers on the end once they get big enough. And they're pretty useful. They're extremely spiky, so around kids or dogs, not a good idea. Like family type stuff, you don't really want to get those unless it's very far away from everybody or up on a hill where nobody's going and stuff like that. They have a variegated one in the back there. You have your variegated with the blue with the yellow back there. So that's a little nicer. I might want to use that a little bit more often because it at least gets you more color, but it's still, you fall on it, you got a problem. Here's a blue glow agave. This is probably one of my top 3 favorite literal overall plants here. It's just got a phenomenal hue to it. You can see a little bit of yellow. It's not a variegated, but you can see the yellow kind of coming through here and there and the red around the edges. It's just such a useful plant. I've used this in probably about 90% of my jobs, honestly, and it's very diverse, very structured, very clean looking. I just love that plant. I want to use it a lot, and I hope you do too. So we have, again, more of these huge cacti back here. They're almost unnecessary. If you're going for big Texas front yard with 7 cactus and that's all you wanted, it's gravel or decomposed granite, go ahead and get some of those, but it's just you're going to spend a ridiculous amount of money where I think you could get something a little bit more fun, maybe. Depends on the situation. These guys are this is one I found out about recently actually, and I actually got one for my home. It's got this little purple hue to it. It's got to be a species of agave. I got to get the name on it, but I really like that a lot. It's very strong. It had no issues on the transplant when I planted it in my home. It's a very interesting one. I like that guy a lot. You have a couple more agave similar to the agave Americana there. Those are useful. So this is more of a 5-gallon size of the agave Americana variegated here. So this I would use more often. I wouldn't get the huge 15-gallon to start with. unless you got the budget and you got 10,000 square feet and you just want some big stuff, you know. Let's see what else we got here. A bunch of these. I don't really like these guys very much. Here's a couple. These are a couple aloes. This might be immaculata or something similar. You'll get the yellow flowers coming out of some of the aloes. Normal aloe vera, you'll also get the yellow flowers. Some of them will get orange flowers, some will get red flowers. So people don't think flowers when they think aloe vera or aloe, but you actually get a lot of them. It's pretty nice. Oh, speaking of orange over here, oh, we got this guy. This is a coral aloe or aloe striata. You got the orange flowers coming out of that. If you've ever been up on that fountain by Los Feliz, where they do all the weddings and stuff, you'll see a whole bunch of orange flowers lining the fountain a couple times a year. And that's actually a bunch of these guys. Kind of interesting. You get a lot of orange with it. The big, you know, the plant itself is not entirely attractive, but it's kind of unique and cool, you know. But the aloes are not going to be as strong as a lot of your agaves and things like this are going to be. Because agave is literally basically a cactus. It's just shaped like that instead. So a couple more aloe striata here. They're useful in a lot of situations. And then we're going to come through here. This guy's cool. So now coming through here, we have a bunch more aloes. A few of these are torch aloes. It's just called a torch aloe. It gets nice and big. These are one of the taller growing aloes. You don't usually get aloes growing up like this. And you'll get flowers with them. Let's see. More different species of aloes. Again, I don't get too into it because I want those things that are going to be very, very strong and not really, if you step on it, you're not even going to have a big deal, honestly, you know. So they're a little fragile, the aloes. This here is actually one of my favorite plants. It looks very shoddy right now. This is a red yucca plant. And it gets little hairs on it, but the cool thing about it is it's a grass, so you get kind of this wispiness to it, and it'll grow, you know, one or several stalks of pink flowers out of it. Just like the aloes do with the orange and stuff, you'll get the pink ones. It's a really nice colored pink to those though, so that's something I use in a lot of projects as well. Over here we just got a bunch more cacti and stuff. This is an interesting one. This is a prickly pear type cactus. I believe that's called a prickly pear Santa Rita. It has a little purple hue on it. It's at least similar to that. I think the normal prickly pear is a little different. But again, cactus or cactus, it's expensive and they get root rot kind of easily if you don't take care of their roots and all this kind of stuff, and they grow really, really slow. So there's a lot more perks to succulents than there are to cacti. Back there you can see the old man cactus. They literally have a natural growing hair almost on them. Put that one there, yeah. It's cool stuff. They can be used sometimes. I wouldn't use them for an entire property by any means, again, unless you're going for that Texas style type thing, you know. We got some big ones here. These are some which one is that? That's a candelabra cactus, these big tall ones here. Called a candelabra because it's like one of those candle holders, you know. It's got all those branches stemming out like that. Pretty cool stuff. I would use that more often than most of these other guys because at least it grows a little faster and a little taller if you really want to get a big cactus accent going on. So here's our big row of fire sticks. Come this way. Big row of fire sticks. So there's a fire sticks euphorbia. Again, a vast majority of the euphorbias, if not all of them, have that little white mucusy sap inside them that's really not good for the skin or the dogs to eat or anything like this. This is one of the only exceptions I make. I use these guys a lot. I make sure that the kids aren't really going to be near them or that they know not to touch them. And I want to make sure that you don't have a dog that chews on everything, or you at least put it in the front yard away from the dogs so they're not going to mess with it if they're a chewer, you know. But they're just cool looking, man. So it's nice to have these in a lot of my designs, actually. And then, you know, you can kind of view that way. You know, we have more perennials and seasonal type flowers up through here. You can kind of just view that way. And we have a bunch of veggies and stuff. I don't really want to get into that. We usually have our customers get their own veggies because a lot of our customers just like creating and making their own vegetables and stuff. I don't need to plant your tomato seeds. It's a pretty easy thing to do. I'll make your boxes for it though. So yeah, now coming through here, we got some cool stuff in here. Got some more little flowering guys that, you know, those are pretty drought tolerant, but I don't really use the kind of big leaf stuff like that too often. More jade type things. This guy's pretty cool. I like the white here. I might use that in certain areas. This is a Senecio vitalis here. So you have the blue Senecio, like blue chalk sticks. That's the one that most people know. They have a little bit thicker fingers than that. But they kind of spread out on the ground a little bit more. This one grows a little upright, which is kind of cool. You don't get many Senecios that grow upright like that. Here's the blue chalk sticks. These aren't looking too good right now. You know, it might not be the exact season for them. They're usually longer on the fingers and stuff, but those guys spread out on the ground a little more. Pretty useful for pots and stuff. I wouldn't really place it in a front yard just to kind of spread out, because once they spread out over time, they get kind of like spindly and they'll go in random directions. Not very attractive. Mostly I like using them for pots and stuff. And then we got some elephant food. Funny thing about this is it's literally elephant food. This is the main food source of elephants, and it's also a species of jade. I might use that sometimes, but it's kind of just not a really in style type thing. If you like it, again, you like it, I can use it, that's fine. These guys are pretty cool. I forgot the name on these because I don't use them very often because they get root rot very easily, just like cactus. And then more blue foxtail agave. Oh, so here's a better looking. This looks like a euphorbia here as well, I believe. Yeah, it's a euphorbia moritanica. That's actually pretty nice. It's got some nice yellow flowers in there. I might add that to the list actually that I have. So it looks like it'll grow out some yellow flowers. That's pretty cool. This is called a copper spoons is the common name for this. As you can see, it looks like a copper spoon. So pretty interesting. Not something I use entirely too often, but they have another one, another succulent actually. This is kind of a succulent. They have another succulent called silver spoons, which is the same thing, but it's silver. It's that like that white flower or the white petals we saw earlier. Same type of thing. And here we have. This looks like this is either a Dracaena palm or a New Zealand flax. This would be considered a pink one. You can see the really light color pink there, and then this would be considered a red or a purple here. So this one's definitely a Dracaena palm, just by how it's growing. It's actually going to grow up on a long stalk. I'll show you one over here in a second. So I like using these a lot. I like using the New Zealand flax a lot. I don't see too many of them around here, but I really like using a mixture of the very drought tolerant grasses that you don't have to touch very often and don't have to maintain very often. Mix of that, succulents, maybe some sages and salvias and things like that. Good mixes there. Lots of color. So here's a taller one. You can see them growing up on the stalks there, so they'll actually grow, you know, up to even like 12 feet tall over time. Pretty cool stuff as long as you take care of them. And then moving through here, let's go back this way. This is I use a lot of stuff on this row here. Here's the kangaroo paws. I'm sure you've seen them all over the place. You might not know what they're called. They're called kangaroo paws because the little things actually look like kangaroo paws, right? So that's actually the reason for it. The yellow is great. The red is great. The orange I think is the best because it's kind of a mix of red and orange in there. It's a beautiful little thing. Those are all flowers, of course. They'll grow on these long stalks out of the base of the plant, kind of out of the middle of the grass area. You can see there, right? So it'll actually grow right out of the middle. So as long as you're watering it, it should definitely get its flowers. And then at certain times of the year, it won't have any flowers, and you'll just have a nice grass. So it's an extremely resilient plant that just really looks nice all year round. I use these quite a bit. They also have a pink one. I saw one over there. I'll show you in a minute. So we got the 4 colors there. Very, very diverse plant, very useful plant. Something I want to use all the time. An interesting little kind of a little mini acacia tree type thing there, I believe. It has the same flower as a Salvia Waverly, which I believe this is. These leaves are interesting. I'd have to do a little research on that. It looks very similar to another plant I know. This is one of the most beautiful flowers you'll actually find, if you can get a little close-up of that. It's a penstemon. And it just has that really cool color. The penstemons are a little fragile though. So I would watch out for the penstemons, especially planting in summer and stuff like this. You really want to get, you know, 3 months of decent weather, not crazy weather, not too much rain, not too much sun. So really, you know, early spring, maybe like late winter, early spring, and then fall would generally be the best time of the year to plant, because then it can root while it's still not crazy rainy yet, and then it doesn't get scorched by the heat of summer, and then it gets all the nice natural minerals from the rain in the winter time. So fall is a good time. Spring is almost just as good, as long as it's pretty early spring. You don't want to plant in April, at the end of April, and then you're getting way too close to the heat, unless it's certain types of plants. You know, a lot of succulents can be planted year-round without a problem. You know, a lot of the plants I'm showing you, that I'm telling you that I like, can actually be planted year-round as well. But, you know, we do provide warranties on plants if they get a little wilted from too much heat and all this kind of stuff. So you don't need to worry too much about it. But I don't want to plant any begonias or any big flowering things that are just super fragile in the middle of summer. It's just not a good idea. I want to plant the things that you're never going to have to touch, you're barely going to have to water, and that's it, right? So we got some lavenders coming through here. This might be a lavandula, kind of like a mixed breed here. Oh, these are actually some pink kangaroo paw here. Flower's not looking too good right now though. They're just now growing out, but I'll show you some cooler ones. I saw some on the other side. Just kind of some shrubs that can be useful here and there. This thing's kind of pretty. This is a sunset gold Coleonema, and it's a cool plant. It'll grow about this big over time, and it'll get kind of long leaves like this off the edge. It could be useful in certain cases. Yeah, that's Coleonema, and that one's a little different. And now, so this is one of my favorite sections here. This is where you get the smells and the flowers without having to worry about them really getting very damaged. You know, you got your salvias and your sages and stuff like this. These are all salvias, sages, lavenders coming through here. So this might be a germander sage. They usually have blue flowers. Looks like they're not coming out quite yet, but pretty soon. So you get a lot of the blues, purples, magentas, oranges, reds, all this stuff out of the salvia, sages and stuff. And they'll actually, a lot of them will get to be about, you know, yay high over time. You got to make sure you trim them every once in a while, because they're going to get a little spindly. So they do take a little bit of maintenance to upkeep, but nothing crazy, and you don't need much water. More salvia, sages, different kinds of leaves here, as you can see. I believe this is a, what's the name on that one? Forgot the name on that one. But they have, you know, all sorts of different leaves with the salvias and sages. And this one's an autumn sage here. I use this very often just because you get the nice red with it. You got a pink one here. So all these are very useful. They're not all in full bloom. I'm sure in a month or two they're going to be a little bit fuller. But these are all 5-gallon size here, so we want to use this size a lot, right? You don't want to use the small one too often. It's just not as mature. This has several months on top of the 1-gallon size plant, and lots more roots and lots more development. It's just not going to freak out as much when you take it out of the pot and put it in the ground. Oh, and here's the pink ones I told you about. So that's the pink color you actually get with the pink kangaroo paw. This one is maybe a little bit slightly more fragile than the other three. The other three are kind of your standard. The orange is kind of a hybrid of the red and the yellow, actually. Pretty strong, but those guys are a little less common, but it's got the cool color. If I'm gonna want a pink with kind of the grass style and flowers and pink flowers, then I'm gonna go with the red yucca I told you about earlier, because it's just a little stronger. Start here. So here we have a little acacia. I really like using acacias. That's a 15-gallon. It's kind of small. If you want a real good size accent tree, I would generally do an upgrade to the 24-inch box size. As you can see, the vast difference in size of the tree. You know, any tree is going to be different in its size, whether it's a 15-gallon or it's the 24-inch box. By 24-inch box means 2 feet, 2 feet, and 2 feet tall. 24-inch box, right? Next size up is probably a 30 or 32-inch box. Next size up is about a 36-inch box, which is just humongous, and you can't even move that. You can barely maybe install that with, you know, 4 guys, but it's going to be rough. You're going to usually need a little crane to lift it out of the truck and all that. So 24-inch box is like solid size, very developed, ready to get growing. 15-gallon might be a little bit fragile on the transplant, and you're not going to get the size for a while most of the time unless you get a very fast growing tree like a Palo Verde or something like that. Acacias I really like. They don't have my favorite one here, which is a purple leaf acacia. So that's that. Maybe they have some in the back, we'll see actually, but acacias I really like to use. Very, very drought tolerant. They have that nice frosty color on the leaves. I really like using that frosty color a lot. It's just a very contemporary style to get kind of that bluish, whitish hue on your green leaves. And we have over here a couple of Mexican redbuds. Similar to the Western redbud. I like the Western a little bit more probably, but you get that cool pink. I'm sure you see these all over Los Angeles, along with the jacarandas, the purple ones, and all those kinds of trees. And then we have here Grevillea. These are weird. I actually saw one back here. Grevillea is kind of like more so a bush, but they do grow into trees also. People buy them as trees. But I want to show you back here. I personally call it the alien flower because it just looks kind of funky. And it's kind of cool looking. Which is a very interesting flower. If you like some weird stuff, there's one for you. I guess one more quick stop right here. Here we have the asparagus fern. Kind of funny thing. It has basically nothing to do species-wise with a fern, but it's actually very close to asparagus. But please don't eat it. But you know, a little bit more of a partial shade type plant. So there's a shade plant for you that I'm actually willing to use most of the time because I kind of like the style of it. Now coming through this way, here we have, this is either a myrtle, no, I think this is a Mediterranean spurge. These will be little yellow flowers. It's a cool plant actually. It's very drought tolerant, but it's another one of those poisonous ones. So you got to look out for the spurges in particular. Little kid takes a bite out of it or something weird, you know, you got a bit of an issue on your hands.